guys, it's Miss Crofutt. I just wanted to give you guys a quick update on how to take some measurements. So I'm going to go through the 4 units that we're talking about, which are length. And right here we have Miss Enfield to help us demonstrate length. So if I were to find the height of Miss Enfield in meters, I'm going to use meter sticks. Okay, kilometers would be too big because she's not that tall, and centimeters would be too small because she's not that short. So if you guys see, I've got 1 meter stick that ends right here. And then I got a 2nd meter stick that ends right there. So there's 100 centimeters in each meter, and you guys can see that on the meter stick. So here's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and then it ends at 100. So there's 1 meter right there. And then if we look, we've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. And if we come up here, okay, we're just shy of 70 for Miss Enfield's height. So we're 1 meter and 69 point, there's 5, 6, 7, about 7. So she's 169.7 centimeters tall, okay? Or the more appropriate way to put that is, because that is 1 meter stick, and this is our 2nd meter stick, we would say 1.697. So she's 1.697 meters tall. Okay, meters would be the appropriate unit to use for length. Okay, just a short one on length there. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys some volume. So there's a lot of different things you guys can use for volume. This is a beaker. It's great because it's got a little pour spout, but you guys will see that it's not that accurate. Okay, the only little lines you see on there are 50, 75, 100. Of course, it's only numbered every 50. But the little dashes in between are 25. So 50, 75, 100, 125, 150, so on and so forth. You guys can also see that this is the volume of this beaker. So it's a 400 milliliter beaker, but you guys can see the highest number it goes to is 300. So it really isn't a 400 milliliter beaker exactly. You could fit 400 milliliters in there, but you won't be able to measure 400 milliliters. Okay, so that's great for just things you don't need any accurate measurement on. But if you do want an accurate measurement of water, you guys can use graduated cylinders. So these are 3 different sizes of graduated cylinders. Okay, this little smallest one is probably the most accurate you can get. It's kind of hard to see the numbers there. You guys can see there is, let me put it up against this a little bit better. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then if we zoom in and do it a little bit closer, there we go. You guys can see that that would be 9 and then maybe a half or 10. So you guys can see all the little increments just in between 9 and 10 milliliters. Okay, this guy right here is a little bit bigger. It's a 100 milliliter graduated cylinder. So you guys don't have the decimals like you do with the small one. Okay, you guys can kind of just see between like 80 and 90, each one of these is a milliliter. Okay, so this between 9 and 10 was 1 milliliter, but this between say 70 and this first line is 1 milliliter. So that's actually the same volume right there and right here. So kind of crazy to think about how that's the same, both 1 milliliter. Okay, and then if you go to an even bigger one, you guys can see it's a little less accurate as well. We've got 450 here and 500 there. We've kind of got 2 different size lines. So we got this bigger one that sticks out and then this smaller one beneath it or above it. Okay, so each of those, if this is 400 and this is 450 and 500, each one of these bigger lines is 10 milliliters. That means that each one of these smaller lines is 5. So 450, 455, 460, 465, 470, 475, 480, 485, 490, 495, 500. Okay, let's just take a look at how you guys measure. So when you are doing volume, you need to get eye level with whatever you're measuring. So I'm going to pull this to the edge, try to get you guys as eye level as possible. So you guys can see that it kind of doesn't have a distinct line. You kind of have an upper part of the water and a lower part of the water. Okay, it almost looks like you have 2 lines or 2 spots you're measuring to. This is called your meniscus. Basically, the water kind of curves up on the side of the glass like this. Okay, so you guys want to measure to the bottom of what we call the meniscus. So it looks like if we were measuring to the top, we'd be at about, let's see here, this is 60, so 61, 62, 63. But if you measure to the bottom of the meniscus, you're actually at 62 milliliters. You guys want to measure at the bottom of that meniscus. Whoops. So in this graduated cylinder, I only have 62 milliliters. Okay? Mass is pretty easy. You guys can use 2 things, the electric scale. 2 things you guys want to know is before you measure anything on the electronic scale, it needs to be at 0. If it's not, you guys hit this 0 button. Okay? And then it also needs to be in grams, because grams is our metric unit for mass. Okay? If it's not on grams, you guys would hit mode until it comes back up to grams. Okay? Once you're at 0 and in grams, you can go ahead and lay whatever you want on there. And once it stops kind of moving here, we would know that this poor little minion weighs 63.7 grams. Okay, this is an old school method of doing some mass. So first of all, you want to make sure your scale is zeroed. So we look at this little guy over here, and it should be lined up with that little white line. It's not quite there yet. So I'm going to tweak something with my weight and make sure it kind of gets lined up. Looks like I still need to there's a little knob right here that helps us get it zeroed. So I'll twist that knob until it lines up. This is how the old people used to do it. So now it's lined up because I made sure all my weights were at 0, and then I tweaked this knob right here. Okay, now you guys can set whatever you're measuring on that. You guys can see it's no longer 0. We want to move weights until it comes back. So we're going to start with our biggest weight first, which is our 100. We're going to go ahead and move our 100 until it tips the scale. So it doesn't tip the scale. There, now it's tipped the scale. So we go back 1. Okay, now we're going to start with our next weight, which is our 10s. We're going to do that until it tips the scale. Okay, so I used 30, and now we're going to start with our smallest, which is our 1s. We're just going to do the same thing. Going to move that until it starts to bring our scale down to 0. So we're pretty close there. Go just a little further. Okay. And we're pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to look at this and add up these 3 numbers. I've got 200 plus 30. And these are by the gram, so this is 8. And this is 9. So this would probably be, that first little dash is 0.1. So it's not even quite to that first little dash yet. So we might say 8.05. Okay, so it would be 238.05 grams. Okay, and that's the weight of this little liquid timer. Okay, last but not least, we got thermometer, or temperature. Okay, we do all of our measurement in temperature, or in degrees Celsius. Let me lay this down here so you guys can see it. My thermometers are a little bit different than a lot that you would see because it has a number on each side. So you guys can see there's a 2 here and a 0 here. The biggest thing to remember when you're doing this is to use common sense. If you guys are measuring the temperature of the room and you look at this, what I'll see is a lot of kids will say it is 2.2 degrees Celsius. But what we know is that water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius. That's a freezing point. So does it make sense that this thermometer that's sitting in my classroom is at 2 degrees, just barely above freezing? Okay, 100 degrees is boiling. So you guys can kind of use those numbers to help you guys think about. Room temperature is usually about 20. So you guys can see the 2 on one side, the 0 on another. So this little line that runs under the 2, sorry, my filming sucks, under the 2 and under the 0, that's 20 right there. This is 25, 30. So each of these little dashes is 1 degree Celsius. So we're at 20, 21, and it looks like we're not quite to 22, so maybe 21.7 degrees Celsius if I were to just take a guess. Okay, so make sure you guys use a little common sense and remember that there's a number on each side. This is 0. This is -10 because it goes below the 0. Okay, hope you guys have fun with the lab, and I hope to see you soon.